like, I guess the last few weeks for like my interpretations project. I could pick any book I wanted. And I chose John because I think John depicts Jesus in such a different light than the other books.
Yes.
John really depicts Jesus as that, literally man from heaven. You know, he really depicts Jesus with a type of humanity that the other Gospels really don't talk about. You know what I'm saying? Like you were talking about chapter 19. My professor, he said it really well. He said Jesus was like the actor and the director of his crucifixion.
Wow. All right now.
Jesus, wow. He carried the cross. What else did he do? To me, this is the most human thing on the cross. While even on the cross, Jesus asked, could he have something to drink? And even though, like, for example, Jesus, he plays the crucifixion very cool, very calm. It's very well like control. Wow. So even though he is in a place, even though he is in a lower place, he's almost empowered. You know what I'm saying? Wow. It's even like his lowest point, he's empowered. Like he's being put up. You know?
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. And you were talking about Jesus' last words. All he says. He doesn't suffer. There's like, even if you can read John, there's no like death of Jesus. You know, there's no in the other Gospels, it's a persecution. It's he goes and talks to Pilate, and then there's the crucifixion, and then there's the death. It's literally just the persecution. He talks to Pilate, and also Jesus. He has a very long. Probably the longest out of all the Gospels. He has a very long dialogue with Pilate too. You know what I'm saying? Wow. I think that's very interesting because in the other he's very short. He's very, but in John he really speaks his mind.
Yes.
What else? Yeah, and even when he was on the cross, all he said was, "It is done." You know what I'm saying? To me, like I put in my paper, and to me that's like him glorifying God on earth for what's just done. You know what I'm saying? What he was sent to. And also, I feel like a lot of people miss in John, a lot of people miss that there were two dissensions, In John, it talks about how, like, it compares God to the word, logos, and it says that word became flesh, and it's comparing the word to Jesus. Wow. That flesh to Jesus. And I think people kind of miss that Jesus came down. He was in a high place. He came down.
Come on here.
And then after the crucifixion, he had to be put up to go back. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So
amen.
Like,
go ahead. Say it, sister.
John is the only gospel to me that, kind of gives. It's like the most direct origin to Jesus back to God. You know what I'm saying? Like people will just like. I'm telling you, read John very closely. It'll like blow your whole mind. But yeah, because after reading it, I was like, oh my goodness. Like to me, John is the only one where Jesus came from heaven originally. You know what I'm saying? And like, I really love it because Jesus, like in John, Jesus didn't suffer. He just, like I said, he was very controlled, very, like, because the Jesus of Mark, Jesus, he suffered. He said, why have you forsaken me? It was almost. His words to me almost made me feel like he was in a way separated from God. But I feel like to John the whole time he was the most connected. Wow. So I think it portrayed him with some type of humanity, but it also made him the most. It gave the most direct link to me, to God, and him being that man from heaven. Yeah. Wow. So
awesome.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Amen.
That was worth the wait. Amen.
Yes.
Amen. Happy Mother's Day. Amen. Amen. Now, can you imagine if I had told her to prepare, but she would have preached the whole message. She's coming back to give us some more. Amen. I told her, but that's just a taste of
that was absolutely wild.
How she sees John and interprets John, and even as we look at chapter 19, verse 26, Let's start with 25, John 19, 25, and then I'm going to move just through those verses just quickly because she just set the stage about understanding Jesus' humanity.
Wow.
Verse 25 says, "Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciples standing by whom he loved, he said unto his mother, Woman, behold thy son. Then said he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. And from that hour, that disciple took her unto his own home." I'm just lifting up the power of significance. That Jesus was even at this place of what is his greatest humanity and supernatural authority at the same time. He is still recognizing the power of needing to make sure his mother is cared for.
That's right.
Tell somebody you're significant to God. Tell somebody else you're significant to God. It is so important. It is so important. And Kennae just lifted up as my mother and I were dialoguing as we rode to, as Gail and I and McKenna rode to Richmond, we were dialoguing about how too often we miss the power of Jesus' humanity. That he literally cares about us.
Yeah.
Tell somebody he cares about you. We love it because many times we skip over because we're so busy trying to bring out the supernatural, the divine, and that's the power. He is both human and divine.
Oh, yeah.
He is both natural and spiritual, happening all at the same time. And even as she was alluding to the suffering, that gospel talks about Jesus as the suffering servant. We see him as a servant who is suffering, going through. We see him also as the Jesus who is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he is praying, and when he comes back, finds the disciples asleep, and he asks them, "Could you not have watched with me 1 hour?" In other words, Jesus is the same being who is agitated. He is bothered. And that's the thing we want to bring out, even in this, as you walk this earth. Don't be confused that you will be bothered. Don't be confused. Don't think, as preachers, we do people a disservice by making them feel like that they're not supposed to feel.
Amen.
Oh, that wasn't that deep, but if you get it, it'll bless your life. We are too busy making people feel like they are not supposed to feel. But the Bible tells us he was touched with the feelings. Come on. He was touched with feelings. God in Christ Jesus. That's the only way God was going to get to know how you felt.
Yes. Wow.
Jesus became God's way of being able to know how you felt.
My God.
Because he was touched, he was bruised, he was able to feel. When he comes down out of prayer, he realized they sleep and he's agitated. Why can't you just watch with me 1 hour? You know what's getting ready to happen. Don't we get agitated with people? Come on. It happens. Tell somebody it happens.
That's real talk.
We got to help people to understand that real life happens.
Yes.
Amen. Everybody's not going to agree with you. Everybody's not going to stick with you. Everybody is not going to watch with you.
Right. Wow. That's right.
Everybody is not going to stay awake. That word, that understanding of awake is not just the wake that we think about when we're talking about sleeping at night or taking a nap. It is literally they became unconscious. They were unaware. They were not consciously aware. That's why Corinthians, Paul tells us that many among you are asleep. That means they are unconscious, they are unaware, and there's a power in understanding that everybody's not going to be aware of you.
That's right. My God.
Everybody's not going to get you. Everybody's not going to understand you. I'm blessed to in our family, as Mother's Day, we are blessed with children that you really have to go to God to understand.
Yes.
Because they are all unique.
Yes. That's right.
Everybody say all unique.
All unique.
Matter of fact, they don't even get each other a lot of times.
Yes.
Because that is the uniqueness. And then many times we don't know, especially when our children have been given a kingdom assignment, it becomes even more unique.
Yes. That's right. You down my lane, Bishop.
Tell somebody even more unique.
Even more unique.
Matter of fact, we get confused because I tell people here lately, I remind them of the fact that many times we think that Jesus came, that we might have this wonderful little peaceful life, everybody gonna agree with me, everybody gonna love me, and I'm here to tell you, mother, father, sister, whoever you are, Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace.
My God, my God.
Come on, they missed that. Jesus came to make our lives peaceful. He said, I came to set mother against father, against brother, mother against brother, mother against daughter, father against son. But many times, God, in doing the will and the work of God, there are times where we realize that God does not come to bring peace.
My God.
He comes, sometimes he sets us against one another, just so his will can be done. Because some of us, I realize, would never move if everything were comfortable.
That's right. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And check his word out. Check the gospel. He said, I didn't come to bring peace. I came to set sister against sister, brother against brother, mother against daughter, father against son. Sometimes in order to get the will of God done, it takes agitation.
Yes. All right.
Come on. If we had everything good, we wouldn't focus.
Watch it. Watch it.
Sometimes it is the agitation that makes us focus.
Yes.
It is the agitation, as in the washer, that gets the dirt out. That's why in the washing machine they use an agitator.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. If you just let the water sit and the clothes sit in the washer, they would never get clean.
All right. You're going to start something.
Some of you need to thank God for agitation. Thank God for people that got on my nerves. Thank God for people that I couldn't agree with, because I would have never moved. I would have never got clean.
Yeah.
Tell somebody I wouldn't have never got clean if it wasn't for that agitation.
Yes.
So God allows things to come, and he tells us, but he's aware, he's conscious, and when we are asleep, we are literally unconscious.
My God.
Sleepwalk. Even when the Bible talks about death, it is not a physical death. It is that death where we become unconscious of who we are as God creator, as co-creators with God. When in Genesis, he talked about how if the day you eat of the tree, you shall surely die. It didn't mean, if you notice, as soon as they ate off the tree, they didn't physically die, but they became disconnected. They became unconscious. They began to see themselves as something other than who God created them. They said, he goes and said, why are you hiding? They said, because I'm naked. He said, who told you you were naked? I never told you you were naked. In other words, they became unconscious from their pure state.
Yes.
They became disconnected. They began to die. Bring it one more. Let's take it to the New Testament. When the son who had gotten all of his father's inheritance and went and lived his life in riotous living, the prodigal son, when he comes back, the father runs and says, my son who was dead.
My God. That's right.
Didn't mean he was physically dead. He became unconscious of who he was in connection to the Father.
That's right. Yes. That's good.
Jesus brings that humanity home, where he on the cross is still conscious about